Good afternoon, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovilians. Today, I'm very pleased to have Tapas with us. Namaste.
Namaste, thank you.
And the first question I always ask Tapas is, how did you first hear of Mother and Sri Aurobindo?
Oh, I didn't have to hear. I was brought by my father to Pondicherry, as my father was connected to this place through his own father, Dr. Bechalal Bhatt,
Yes.
who was one of the doctors to Sri Aurobindo and disciples.
Yes.
And my grandfather had met Sri Aurobindo first in Baroda. And my grandfather was a private doctor to the Maharaja of Baroda.
Oh.
And that's how he was introduced to Sri Aurobindo, through the Maharaja.
Oh, I see.
That was in the early days when Sri Aurobindo had just been in Baroda.
Interesting. So what?
So I was 4 when I was
four.
brought here, yeah.
4 years old.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go.
We were admitted in the ashram school at that
Right.
time. Myself, my older sister, Chetna. And we were there for 2 to 3 years. I don't know exactly the number of years. And then my grandfather sent my father and us back to Gujarat for some work. So we went back. And then we studied in Gujarat again. We studied for the first time. And 4 to 5 years later, then we came back again to Pondicherry. And we were lucky enough that mother accepted in the school again.
Again, yes.
And that time, all the 5 of us.
All 5 of you.
Yeah, we were just 3 in 1954 when we were in school here.
Can you tell us some of your contact with Mother experiences, if you will, or just whatever you would like to say about Mother?
But for us, she was completely part of our life. Without her, we wouldn't be doing anything. And that's the way we were living in the school, doing our sports and all the extracurricular activities. All under her guidance, her protection, and...
You saw her many times a day, no?
In the 50s, yes, when we were here for 2-3 years in 54 to 56. I think we left in 57 back to Gujarat. So we used to see her every morning. My dad used to wake us up early morning and be at 6 at the balcony darshan.
Right.
And then in the evening after the sports, she would receive us at the playground. And we would be queuing up after sports as kids, waiting for her to
Give the groundnuts.
give the groundnuts to us. That was the excitement while waiting in the queue. That's what I would remember.
Did you go often to see her upstairs?
At that time, the only memory I have is this early morning and in the evening in the playground. Apart from this, I don't remember when I was young that time. But when we came back in 62 for good, she was already upstairs. She didn't come down.
Right, that's right.
So that time we had her darshan 4 times a year, like everybody.
Right.
And also she received us on our birthdays, which was really, really very special for every child, every year that she meets us on our birthday. I think it was a major education for us, I think. She really guided us. I don't think as children we realized what it meant, but today when I look back, I think she put everything of her vision in us on our birthdays. And for us as children, every year we were excited to look forward to meeting her on our birthday, receive the birthday card. And when I started painting, on every birthday I would give her a tray of paintings according to the number of age I would arrive at. So if I became 15, then I would bring her 15 cards, 16 next year, 17 next year.
What did she say?
I don't remember, but I think she accepted my cards. And there's one painting I remember. I didn't do cards, but I did a huge painting of a tree. I used to love painting flowers and plants and trees. So there was one time I did a big painting of a tree, I remember. And I don't know where those paintings are, but that was my joy and my way of giving to her.
What attracted you to Oroville?
Oh, that was
And
from...
what year?
You know, in the ashram school we had this free progress system.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And when it was announced that there was this new system going to start, I told my father I want to join this new system. And it was really a different way of growing up, giving the freedom to a child to experience what freedom meant, and that how you learn to utilize freedom with discipline and not freedom to do what you want. So initially, I remember in the school we had every school year, in the beginning of the year we had a timetable, and Tanveda was our main guide, and we had to submit our program for the year, and we had a choice to choose a subject and stay to one subject and one teacher, or several subjects with group learning with one teacher. Or the third option, there was not to do anything but still arrive at school in time and leave in time from school. There were two rooms in the free progress system. One room was called a room where you don't do anything, just gossip or talk or be with friends and chat throughout the day. We were allowed to do that if we chose to do that. And then there was a silence room if we wanted to be just silent and learning by ourselves. That was also given, and I remember I did both. So, I mean, now when I analyze how I experienced those moments, it is important to let the child understand till it is enough to gossip or enough to waste time and chat with friends. So one day I felt, okay, that's enough for me, so I decided to go and study in the silence room. And I remember my teacher had given me physics and chemistry and maths homeworks. So I sat alone in the silence room, and I was amazed by myself at the results at which I arrived. And I was happy to have given good results to my teacher, to have been able to understand. That's what I remember now. Then when we had freedom with other teachers to do painting, dance, music, all kinds of other classes organized by the teachers. At that time, we used to have regular visits from Roger Angers in our classroom, and he would come down from after visiting the mother. He would come and be with us in the classroom. So what I remember mainly is, he said, "Mother, talk to me about this project called Oroville. So I would like you to all use your imagination and draw from your imagination how you would dream of an ideal city." So we had to do sketches. And that's my memory. And that's the beginning of my contact and connection with Oroville.
And before we go into Oroville, I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit about your teachers in Free Progress.
My teachers in Free
Progress. You can share some nice stories, remembrances of them. Who were the key people? Was
Key people, of course, was Tanmeda.
Right.
Kirit Bhai as the director of the school,
Right.
with whom we were very closely in touch with my family.
Ah,
And there was another French lady by name Padma.
I knew Padma
Yes.
very well, actually. Her daughter was Jo?
Yes.
Okay.
Who used to play
Yes,
the
yes,
trumpet
yes.
in the orchestra for the march past.
Yes.
And there was another lady, yes, Urmila Ben.
Okay.
She's still around as a teacher.
Yes.
So she was my teacher.
And you had contact with Jugal or Kitu?
That was much later. When we finished about 6-7 years, the school was a bit didn't know how to deal with us because we were in free progress system and there was this whole other system, the normal system of study,
Tests, examinations.
examinations and all.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we finished, they had to like evaluate according to our age which standard we would go to. So when we came out of that system, they had to make us undergo, at least I remember in my case, they made me undergo intensive classes on English literature, on French literature, to catch up with geography, history of Europe, history of India, some works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother.
Ah,
And during that time, I remember there were exams going on. I didn't have to go through any exams, but we had to go through this intense course to be able to then move to knowledge system, the higher course.
oh,
So what I remember in 1970, there was some circular distributed by the mother to all the parents of the children, and in which she said, if you want your children to have a degree and if you want your children to have a job at the end for their own earning, there are many institutions and schools in India. So you're welcome to take them out. But if you have faith in what I'm doing in this school, it's a special focus she is giving to the education with another vision. If you have faith, you can leave them with me. So my father was very clear that we should be in the ashram school with the mother's guidance. And with that faith, I'm still around. I think she has guided us all the time through.
but Auroville called you.
Auroville called me, yes, it's this, I think the fundamentals of free progress system, the essence of what's meant behind the vision of free progress system is how a child learns to have confidence in herself or himself, and how he learns to use the freedom with discipline, not freedom as a license to do what you want. For me, this fundamental message and conclusion that I give myself is very important. And so during the free progress system, Roger Angers used to go quite often to Auroville before the inauguration. And I remember I used to jump on the bus with him the last week before the inauguration of Auroville. I was with Roger Angers every day around the banyan tree. You know, there was this water pond.
Yes, yes.
And there were ammas from the villages who were doing kolams. So I was busy doing kolams with them. So, and I remember the last day on 27th evening, I came back with him on the bus. In late evening at home, and my father said, "Oh, you have a letter from the school saying you are going to represent Syria tomorrow." So this was all decided. I didn't choose.
Yeah.
But something constantly guided me to be there in Auroville. I don't know what. I don't remember. All that I remember that I was with his team on the bus that whole week of February, 21st February to 27th February. And so on the 28th, I was part of the delegation having the Syrian flag and
And the
ashrams.
soil.
And the soil was held by the boy, ashram school boy.
Ah, okay.
His name was Tarun. So
The Tarun I knew.
you knew Tarun?
Yeah, I think so.
Young boy, yeah.
Yes.
So she had chosen for all the countries who were absent, she had said to Kirit he should select students from the ashram. So it was a grand day for me. It's an unforgettable day.
I was there.
You were there? Oh, wonderful.
I was photographing the
Okay.
ceremony, yes. Mother gave me permission. Yeah.
And my parents were there. My older sister, she represented Panama.
Oh,
And my younger brother Manan, he was too young. And the other sister and the youngest one, Rashmi, the tabla player, he was too young. But we were all there. My whole family was there on the inaugural day. I mean, I was holding this flag and my sister was holding the flag for Panama. And I'm glad today to be able to say I've survived this 50 years of Auroville, which is a miracle.
yes.
It's only because of her vision and the consciousness from which she has created this project. And as she says in some of her writings, that Auroville will be despite us.
Yes. Yes.
And we are just there as instruments for her to manifest that dream through us. And I don't know whether we have failed or been successful, but I still have faith in her presence and her energies which guide us in Auroville.
What work did you start with and where did you live in Auroville?
I moved to Auroville from ashram to Auroville. It was in 1971, 1st November. Physically, I moved. I decided to be in Auroville. I was in Aspiration.
In Aspiration.
There was a very big housing crisis, like it is even today.
Yes, yes.
And but as an Indian, to leave home, even in an ashram family, my father grew up from his childhood in the ashram. My grandfather was here, all my family. But the day I announced to my father that I would like to go, he couldn't bear the idea that I would go.
Oh, really?
So he went to talk to Chamanlal Gupta, who was my boss that time. I had finished my studies in the ashram school in 75. And 76, my father wanted me to go abroad for higher studies in fine arts and music. And for some technical reason, it got postponed. So then I told my father I didn't want to go anymore and I wanted to stay back and rather join Auroville or be in the ashram. So I tried my stay in the ashram through work. I worked in Shabda. I didn't like it. Then I worked with Chamanlal Gupta. And so I told him, I said, I would like to move to Auroville. And all my friends that time from the ashram, 77 was a decisive year for many ashram people. So to begin with, François Gauthier went back to Auroville.
Yes.
Pierre Legrand went back.
Ah, yes.
Then Guru Prasad went, then Jean, Vivek, Joy, all my friends who were with me in
They
the
were all ashram. They were all in the ashram.
Yeah.
I see.
Pierre and Jean, they were my teachers in Free Progress System in the school. Joy was in the same school with me. Vivek was with us. So it's this batch from Free Progress System who moved. So for Tanmayda, it was a great joy to see the results that it's probably the education that we had in Free Progress System that gave us this push,
It
an
was
aspiration to make the step to Auroville. It was not easy, I think, individually.
No.
In my case, individually, it was very difficult because my mom was not well, my younger two brothers and sisters were very young, and my older sister had just got married, so there was a lot of responsibility at home. But something else in me wanted this change, and I told my father I need to go. And so he had a big talk with Dr. Chamanlal Gupta saying, why is she going now? And he supported me saying, yeah, every woman should have the right to decide what she wants to do with her life. I was inspired by Chamanlalji that he would say something like this. But at the end of the conversation my father had with Chamanlalji, my dad broke into tears. And so Chamalaji cycled up that evening. This was in 77 October. And he went to meet Pashi and all other people in aspiration who were living there still from Shramla Society. And he asked them, what's the situation for a young Indian girl like me to move to Auroville that time? And they said, well, it was not appropriate right now. Let her wait some time. She can go later. So next morning when I went to work at Chamalaji's office, he said, Tapas, I went to check out. And he says, you should not go now. So then I was really upset. And my father trusted me all through my growth in the ashram school. And I told him I needed to go. And I wanted to experience how to be an individual as a person. Because, in Indian culture, we are always, it's a joint family. We live together, grow up together. There is no individual space for a person and learn how to occupy that space to be oneself. So I wrote a long letter of 25 pages to my father, and he read it. But when I announced him, next day after meeting Chamalaji, I said, I don't trust you anymore. I don't trust Chamalaji. You were both supporting in my growth, the way I was growing all through my education in the ashram, and now you tell me I can't go. So I said, I've decided I'm going. So then my father really got afraid and he started beating me up. But my mother intervened. And then I just quieted down. I went to the sports, and it seems he had sent my brother and two brothers to look for me the whole day. He was afraid that I would commit suicide or something. Yeah. He got worried.
How old were you then?
I think I was 77. I'm 52 October born. Must be 24.
Yeah.
Or 25.
25, yeah, must have been very, very emotional.
So in the evening when I came back home from sports, he said, he just quieted down. He says, you do what you want, you go, take what you want from home and just come back home whenever you want. So next morning I left. And I was already feeling bad because since I was there from 1968, up to 77, I went every weekend to Auroville on my own bicycle for about 10 years. It was so inspiring for me. I mean, you had, that time it was countryside, no?
Yes.
From Mutyalpet.
Sure.
And then in 73 November and 74 November, there was 2 school holidays. I went to spend in Matrimandir camp. And I told Shyam Sundarji I want to work in Matrimandir. So my whole school holidays, I didn't tell anything in the school. I said I'm on holidays. I didn't say I was in Auroville because we were not supposed to be there as ashram kids in Auroville.
Well, this was the time of difficulty when Prana...
Not yet. This was in 75.
Oh, so this...
Maybe it was already like that.
It was coming, yes.
But anyway, so for me those 2 years, 1 month and a half of stay in Matrimandir camp was also helped me to determine that my place is in Auroville. It was a question of time as to when physically I could move there. So actually in 73, I don't know where you were in 73 in November. We finished concreting
I was in the camp.
I was in the camp too. We finished the last pillar. I don't know which pillar, on November 17th.
Right.
And we had shower in the camp, and then I and few others who were living in the camp, we went for a walk in the starry night, under the starry night. It was all very quiet. We had finished all the 4 pillars of Matrimandir. And I went back to sleep, and next morning was my and Patricia's turn to make breakfast. And my room was right next to the phone. So I woke up to do the breakfast with Patricia in the kitchen, and suddenly there was a phone ringing. I went back to the phone, and it was Prabhat Poddar who called saying, Mother has left her body. So to find myself having to wake up one by one in each room with Patricia It was quite an experience to reaction of everybody. And there was, of course, a big silence. We all moved to, at 7 o'clock we were in Matrimandir, outside Matrimandir, the circle. Everything else was you had to go down to go up to the structure. So we made a full circle of Matrimandir waiting, meditating. And then Shamsundar had sent a bus for us to be picked up so that we could go to the ashram and see her body. So we went by bus. Then I met one of my aunts. She said, Tapas, don't worry, she's not gone. Just wait for 4 days and you'll see she'll be back. So I believe my aunt. So I mean, of course, it was, I don't think she has left. But so that evening with 3 other friends or 2 other friends from Auroville who were staying in Matrimandir camp, from the ashram gate we walked to the beach. And there was beach that time. We went along the beach, we walked to the north up to Utility Road, through the green belt we walked back to Matrimandir. It was a beautiful walk we had, like an inner walk of. And for me, so that day, it was one more decision that my place was in Auroville. Yes. The fact that she left when I found myself in Auroville. But what happened to my father that time, he was in Gujarat. My father, as a child, he used to come to the ashram because his own father was here. And he had a very special relation with the mother, full faith. And he was very clear that he wanted his children to have this education under mother's guidance. In his own dream, between 16th and 17th night, somebody woke him up early morning at 4 saying, Vibhu, wake up, you have to come home now, back to Pondicherry. And he woke up and he heard this voice and there was nobody around, so he went back to sleep. Again, an hour later or 2, again some voice told him, I said, Vibhu, wake up now, come back home. And still there was nobody around. And then finally he wakes up around the time for breakfast. He had to give a talk in some conference on pollution. And he puts the radio on and that's when he hears the mother had passed away. So he cancels his conference and he takes the train back and he reaches on 20th November and he could not see her body. So he just wept and wept. He says, why did you not wait for me? Now what will I do with my children? They are all here. They are still very young. And I had sent a message home saying, I'm not coming back. I was staying back in Matrimandir camp. And my father sent a taxi saying, you have to come back. So I didn't take the taxi. I walked back from the camp through Certitude Road, through the Four Comers, through Muthiarpet, all the way back walking to Pondicherry because I couldn't stay in Matrimandir as my deeper aspiration was to just stay back. And I had another 3 years to finish higher course in school. 2 years. So my father said, you have to complete your studies, we'll see later. And that night in Matrimandir I had a dream that a lot of friends came to see me in my room and I was supposed to, for some reason, leave my body. And everybody came to say bye to me. I will never forget this dream. It was like changing your skin and starting a new life. And I woke up and the dream was over. For me it meant that I was ready to change, move from ashram to Auroville, but my father said it was not time. I had to obey him because it was like that time. He was very powerful presence in our family. So I went back, I finished my studies. After I finished my studies, he prepared me to go for higher studies in the US. I got selected with a scholarship, but for technical reason it didn't work. So that's when I moved to Auroville in 77. So my father was when I moved on 1st November, the last batch from ashram who moved with me on 1st November 1977 was Rakal, his wife, and Oravrata, and myself. And I started my life in aspiration. And I had a little hut in Dusar, where the bakery is today.
Yes.
And there was a little hut over 4 granite pillars, and I had a little oil lamp with a torchlight. I had to walk down every day to aspiration for breakfast, for lunch and dinner, and I had to walk back home. And that was my first days in Auroville completely alone, and I wept like a dog every night because I was never alone in my life like this. And my friend had Markandre, I don't know if you remember.
I remember Markandre.
So he had already moved, and my father knew him well. He says, "Why don't you marry him before you go to Auroville?" I said, "I'm not going to Auroville to marry somebody." I said, "I'm going to Auroville to be with mother's dream and realize that dream." So, for every Indian father, the worry is what will his daughter do when she becomes old. So they want to be free of that worry in order to make them get married, no? So then his duty is over, but I didn't. So then later on I got an aspiration, a big hut. Mark and I, we moved in together. And 2 years later, my father passed away, which was a major change in my life and for my family. His dream was that I do my higher studies, have a career and be strong. So after 6 years in Auroville, I went to Paris for higher studies and experienced what it is to work, have an earning, have a salary, have a bank account, office hours 9 to 5. So that was at the age of 32. Between 83 and 93 I was in Paris.
And of course you knew French from the ashram.
Yeah.
So that was not an obstacle at all.
And even in Paris, mother really, she helped me realize all my dreams. She said, "You wanted to learn this, here it is. You want to do this." It was every time on the plate she would say, "This is what you want to do, here it is, here." Till the day I came back to Auroville. That's when I consciously decided that Auroville was for me. I had 2 conscious decisions. One is to move in 77 against my father's will, which was a tough decision. And then I satisfied all my dreams being outside India and study. I did my higher studies. I did my BA, MA, MPhil degree and doctorate later. And then in BA in English Linguistics, master's degree on American Civilization Women's Studies, and then MPhil degree on Arts Management. And when I came back to Auroville and 93, 2004, about 10 years later I went back to do my doctorate in Paris between 2006 and 2013. I haven't submitted my thesis, but that's what I did.
And what work are you doing in Auroville now?
So in Auroville, when I came back in 93 till now, it's been my experience, professional experience that I gathered in Paris in managing the arts, the promotion and development of arts and cultural activity, both the educational side and the artistic side, to promote research-oriented projects in Bharat Nivas, in Auroville as a whole in general. And through my experience in Paris, I put Auroville on international network by creating an artist residency program. So we get requests from all over the world under my program to come and do artist residencies in Auroville. So that's my program from 93 up to now. And I was happy to share my experience at a more professional level. And
at one point, you just mentioned music.
Music, yeah.
Yes, please tell us a little.
You know, in ashram, mother gave a lot of importance to the teaching of arts.
Yes.
We had access to everything in the ashram school. Access to learning piano, I did 7 years of piano. Access to learning sitar, I did 7 years of sitar. Rabindra Sangeet music with Shobhadi. Painting under, I forget his name, Krishnalal.
Krishnalal.
And then later on, Pialogram was my teacher. Amitadi was my art history teacher. Then sculpture with a Canadian teacher on sculpture I did. Pottery I did with Ray and Deborah.
Oh my God.
And piano with Olga. And then later on, Richard.
Ah.
And then I did my Trinity College of Music London exam secretly in the Clooney School. I sat for 2 exams, 4th and 5th grade. So that was my love for music.
Wonderful. So how is the program, how are the programs decided in Oroville at Bharat Nivas or whatever other venue? I know there's a lot of dance.
Yes.
There's some music, but I don't know how much music.
Let's say there's tremendous potential for creativity in Oroville in every field. So if we talk about art and culture, there's so much potential. We have today a pool of about almost 200 artists in all disciplines, whether it's sculpture, whether it's jazz, whether it's classical, whether it's choir, whether it's Bharatnatyam, Kathak, Odissi, painting, writing. There's so much potential. But what we also do is a lot of guest artists come to discover Oroville. So they offer their work. So that's when we have this little service-oriented unit, which was earlier called Kalamitra, and later on became something else. So we had a little budget to receive guest artists who would offer, say, this is what I know, can I offer in the auditorium, or can I do an exhibition, or can I teach, or can I give a workshop? So this happens all the time in Oroville in all different departments. So it's for a small community of 2,500, we are very, very privileged to have a professional auditorium with external infrastructure.
Yes.
Then you have Kripa Hall, then you have Pitanga Hall. Actually, we have so much, but the spaces are underutilized. And my wish is that Oroville artists and visiting artists would teach more Orovillians to be more professional, to give more time. Because Oroville, with the economics of Oroville, people have to earn, so the artistic part becomes secondary. So most of the artists in Oroville work at night, when it's for a performance, whether it's choir, or to come up with a jazz concert or piano concert. So it's very rare that you have a full-time artist in Oroville. Very, very rare. And I wish this would receive more focus, especially if we added as a curriculum activity in the schools right from young age. Then maybe in another 10-20 years we can have very good Oroville artists as professional ones. And if they get a grant for higher studies, to be more professional. So I think that's a big gap in Oroville for the arts. And I wish.
How do you feel about the Prime Minister's visit and the potential that it may possibly open up?
I think he was guided. And had mother been here, she would have been very happy to receive him, to show what she has done with Oroville. I think he took great pride in having this experience by coming to Ashram first and Oroville.
Yes.
And I thought his talk was very moving.
Yes.
Very to the point and very appropriate to Oroville's own raison d'etre. I don't know who prepared his talk, but it was very well written. And I just learned today from some friends that he keeps talking about Orwell to lots of people in his government and friends, his foreign delegates and everywhere. And I think India at the end of 50 years takes pride in supporting Orwell. It's become a national, Orwell has become a project of national importance, as far as I understand. And, I don't know if you have heard about it. There was, in the 90s, mid-90s, there was an American who traveled all over the world in all the communities that were started from the 60s. 60s was this hippie movement.
Well, we had Findhorn.
And Arizona.
Arizona, yes.
And so many communities all over the world. And he filmed all the history of all the communities up to the mid-90s, and including Orwell. And then he showed this video in Orwell in one evening, and I happened to attend that. At the end of the video, his question was, how come most of the communities either died or became something else, did not stick to their objectives for which it was created? And his question was, how come Orwell is still survived? And today we are 50 years old, and how come we have survived? So the answer that I gave to myself and to the people around is, it's a project created by the mother from her level of consciousness. And she says, in her writing, that it's the divine will that a place like this must be on this earth.
Yes.
And why in India? So for me, I believe India, throughout its history of civilization and growth, it has been open to receive new ideas, alternative projects. So because of the mother having created from her level of consciousness with a spiritual background as a basis for our research, how to bring the synthesis between matter and spirit, India has the spiritual groundwork throughout its civilization. So I think India has this potential and openness to receive such a project called Orwell.
I would like to ask you, and you don't have to answer, how do you see the progress of Orwell today?
Materially fantastic. Education, we have yet to go. We haven't done much, according to me. Parents still don't believe in what mother wants us to do in education. So I wish parents would, when parents come with the choice to bring their children in Orwell school, they should really not intervene and believe in mother's directions. She has given guidelines for our schools,
yes.
and we don't. So for me, education, we have yet to do something about it. And in our self-governance, we haven't really been able to find a solution how to make decisions. When we need to take major decisions, we haven't yet found a system where it suits everybody and move forward. Third is the spiritual dimension. So these three go in hand. If we say that we are here in Orwell for the integral yoga, for the transformation of the body, all the parts of our life through this integral yoga, how to simultaneously and parallelly individually grow, do this work on ourselves, and collectively we grow. So collectively, for me, Orwell has two major phases. One is before the foundation and after the foundation. From the early days till the foundation came into place, it was a very strong collective lifestyles we had, especially the first 15 years, from 68 up to almost 85, 89, I think. It was very strong collective. And I'll never forget that. That was the most happiest moments I had, very intense. We didn't have much. We didn't have much to eat. We went through a tough time when we had this problem with Shram, society.
Yes.
But there was so much joy of sharing and living together in simplicity. The word simplicity and the spirit of service has disappeared, according to me. And I was part of this research group, a study group on governance in the last 5 years. And last 2 years I couldn't attend because the day they meet, it doesn't suit me. Just today we got a mail that we are going to start this group again, and again they have fixed a day on when I'm not able to go. But I think governance is one thing, and it's all correlated with this legal structure that we have got from the Auroville Foundation, protection to Auroville so that Auroville can concentrate on its experiment based on Mother's charter and her guidelines as to what it means to be a true Aurovillian. For me, these are the two major objectives. If we don't keep them as our motto, then very often we get lost in the forest. We take a longer path, a longer route. And maybe the Divine Mother accepts that, because human nature is such, we probably don't take it for understand that what we are here for in Auroville. So sometimes I think she gives us time. And for me, the most important aspect in Auroville is the freedom to experiment. Just as when Sri Aurobindo says in his book, The Synthesis of Yoga, that all life is yoga. And then at some point Sri Aurobindo talks about, maybe not in this book, but in another book, that it's important to have this not the freedom for the freedom's sake, but this inner freedom to grow, to discover oneself. To be able to discover oneself, you have to be free from all attachments, either to the social structure or the family or whatever. And I see Auroville as a laboratory for research, and in that framework I feel very comfortable. The other frameworks, I feel uncomfortable. And somebody had rightly said in one of the general meetings, we forget that we are here to do research. And when we think that we have come to settle down, then it's over.
Yeah.
Because the moment you say settling down is you are creating your comfort zone with a little garden, somebody looking after your garden, somebody looking after your food, and then it's over. But then there is a contradiction at some point, because Mother wants us to build this city. To build the city, you need a huge budget.
Yes.
And how do you look after the residents? And the system, the economic and financial system that we have, is it really ideal according to Mother's dream? Because she has given us directions, but we are not following them. And it can be worrisome, but I don't let that worry come into my life. But I think she's still there. She's still guiding us through the hard way, but she's still around.
Earlier you said very quietly, I don't think she has left.
Yeah, she hasn't left. Especially when you go to Matrimandir. I had my Matrimandir duty this morning, 6 to 8.
Yes.
And she said, the earlier you finish building Matrimandir, the better it is for Auroville.
Yes.
It took us almost 40 years to build it. That's the human space we took. We couldn't do it faster, I guess. Maybe. But I think it's a unique space Mother has given to humanity. And India holds it for us.
Yes.
And I think Mr. Modi has given us the next push for the next 50 years.
Good.
And we don't know what he is going to do with us, but I think we should be humble enough to respect India and what it stands for. And sometimes we forget in Auroville. Very often.
I see.
That's my... I feel we forget. We need to be a little more humble. And humble ourselves in front of these ideals and be more grateful, gratitude for the mother. But it's a real gift in our hands, and how to hold it, and not allow it to go down.
Yes.
And including me, we are all responsible. When we are sidelined from our goals, it's our mistake.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem, the other problem, if there is I missed the thought. My thought had left. I think we have to... It's easy to do your work individually at home, but we have to work together collectively.
Collective harmony.
And the unity in diversity, and respect the other. We are a microcosm of the macro, and every problem of the world, Mother has brought specimens for us to make experiment on that.
Yes.
And I think the Orville Foundation as a legal structure, it's still a good tool, but some believe it's impinging on our growth. But I don't believe that. And somebody yesterday was saying it's very important to prepare the future for our younger generation.
Yes.
If we are not ourselves as models, then what will the younger ones do? And I think we don't teach enough of Mother and Sri Aurobindo in the schools and in Auroville.
I have asked others about that very thing, and I asked, are there evening classes where people gather and read or talk about Mother Sri Aurobindo's work?
I think in some schools individually teachers do, and Savitri Bhavan is a good place. I think there are a lot of in the evening. I'm not sure, but up to 6:30, Shraddha Bhavan holds classes thrice a week. But late in the evening, I think we should have adult education evening classes like you have in the ashram. Somebody reading together, and I think it will come when the need arises.
You said that there's not enough humility towards India. Is it mainly from the Western people, or is it from the community as a whole?
From the community as a whole.
I see.
I would say both, from the community as a whole and also from people who come from outside India. Because as far as, I don't know, maybe you can correct me because you were there in the early days. For Mother, it was very clear that people should know something about India when they arrive in Auroville. There should be some center either in India or in the ashram, that you get accustomed to the Indian climate, both at the cultural level, social level, historical level, and know the history, because it is a lab for research and it's a microcosm of the macro. So you have all the attitudes which reflect. And out of fear, out of need for security, we tend to reproduce the same models from the outside world. For lack of faith in the unknown, for the lack of faith in the Mother, for the lack of perhaps not enough of surrender and humility, because she has assured us the path, but she said you have to have faith in that adventure. So we have even to a certain extent lost that spirit of adventure, because Auroville has become such a comfortable place now.
I see.
Oh, you have everything that you need in Paris or London or New York. You have everything in Auroville, materially. So then we tend to forget, no?
Yes.
Then we settle down.
Yes.
Then we have this attachment, this is mine, this is not yours. Then there is competition. And the most difficult part is our own human ego. I think that's the biggest obstacle in our growth for Auroville to move forward is us. It's human nature. So materially the matter is ready for change. But as humans, I think we are still, our human nature, I love life, I love certain things, and so sometimes I feel, oh, I'm not doing enough of yoga on my detachments, and I have to be a little more simple. And I wish we could be more simple in Auroville. And I miss the ashram atmosphere in Auroville. I really miss. But I am lucky. I have had the advantage of having grown there, and that's my strength to survive in Auroville. If I have survived this 50 years, is only because of her. If I have survived abroad in Paris, staying alone, I'm a self-made person. And thanks to the mother. She's been always there. Whenever I wrote letters, she would reply. Surprisingly, I would not be expecting any answer, knowing she was very busy. But she took care to reply every child's letter. And she has replied to few letters that I wrote, and I keep that preciously.
It's wonderful to talk
And
with
I
you.
wish she would come back and live in Auroville.
I have promised that I will come back for the gardens
Oh, good.
when the harmony is sufficient that we can work together in peace and with gratitude and humility. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Naren. Nice.